Episode 15, The Distance Between Fingers. The dorm room was too small. Too quiet. Too full of things neither of them could say. Wei tossed his basketball up toward the ceiling for the third time, catching it one-handed. Chen lay on his bed, earbuds in, staring at the ceiling like it might give him answers. Finally, Wei sat up. Walk. Chen looked over, eyebrow raised. Wei shrugged. Can't sleep. Chen hesitated. Then pulled out his earbuds and grabbed his hoodie. Whatever. Wei grinned. Victory. The night air was sharp and cool, smelling faintly of damp grass and distant city smoke. They walked side by side through the campus streets, deserted now except for a few stray cats and the hum of the vending machines near the admin building. Streetlights buzzed softly overhead, casting long, stretched shadows. Wei shoved his hands deep into his jacket pockets, shoulders brushing Chen's every few steps. He told himself it was the sidewalk's fault. Narrow. Uneven. Not his fault at all. Chen didn't move away. Didn't comment. Just kept walking, head tilted slightly back, watching the stars hide behind thin clouds. They talked about stupid things at first. Which cafeteria food was the worst? Which professor had the most ridiculous hair? Whether their basketball captain secretly wore lifts in his shoes. Chen snorted at Wei's jokes, low and reluctant but real. Wei pretended not to notice how the sound made his chest feel too tight. At a quiet corner, by a patch of scraggly trees, Wei slowed. Chen matched his pace automatically. Wei's fingers brushed against Chen's. Just for a second. An accident. A lie? Chen didn't react. Wei's heart stuttered anyway. He glanced sideways. Chen was staring ahead, face unreadable. Wei's hand twitched. He could reach out. Take it. Thread their fingers together. It would be so easy. Just one step closer. 1 second of courage. He flexed his fingers inside his pocket, willing himself forward. But his feet stayed frozen. And the moment slipped past. They reached the old tennis courts, now abandoned and overgrown with weeds. Wei leaned against the rusted chain-link fence, tossing a rock idly between his hands. Chen kicked at a loose can, sending it skittering across the cracked pavement. The silence between them wasn't heavy. It wasn't awkward. It was something else. Something so fragile that breathing too hard might shatter it. Wei spoke without thinking. You ever think? Chen looked over. Think what? Wei shook his head, smiling crookedly. Never mind. Chen didn't press. Just came to stand beside him, close enough that their shoulders touched lightly. A casual touch. An anchor. Wei closed his eyes for a second, letting it burn into him. Letting himself want. Without reaching. Without ruining. They stood there a long time, saying nothing. The stars peeking shyly from between the clouds. The air sharp in their lungs. Wei thought. If I can stand here beside you. If I can want you without breaking us. Maybe that's enough. For tonight. Maybe that's enough. Narrator. Sometimes love isn't measured in kisses. Sometimes, it's measured in the inches you don't cross, the hands you don't grab. The spaces you respect even when they hurt. And the nights where standing beside someone, silent and aching, is the bravest thing you'll ever do. Pause. The dorm room felt different that night. Not because anything had changed. The beds were still unmade. Textbooks still scattered across the floor. a half-eaten bag of chips left forgotten on the desk. But something in the air had shifted. Something heavy. Something neither of them wanted to name. Wei sat cross-legged on his bed, pretending to scroll through his phone. Chen sat at the desk, pretending to read. Neither of them said it. But the silence between them wasn't comfortable anymore. It was brittle, tense, ready to snap. Wei tapped his foot against the mattress, fidgeting. Chen turned a page too loudly. Wei glanced up. Chen didn't meet his eyes. Wei dropped his phone onto the bed with a sigh. "You're mad at me again," he said finally. Chen didn't look up. "I'm not mad." Wei huffed a laugh, but it was hollow. "Right. Because you're so good at hiding it." Chen set the book down with a thud. Turned to face him fully. "Why do you always do that?" Wei blinked. "Do what?" Chen's jaw clenched. "Pretend like everything's a joke." Wei shrugged, but it was tight, defensive. "Maybe because if I don't laugh, I'll..." He cut himself off, pressing his lips together. Chen's expression softened just slightly. "You don't have to," Chen said, voice rough. "Not with me." Wei looked away, staring at the window where the rain traced lazy patterns down the glass. "Yeah," he said quietly. "I do." For a long time, they just sat there, breathing the same heavy air, carrying the weight of everything they wouldn't say out loud. The things they hid behind teasing smiles and half-shoved shoulders. The things they buried under homework and basketball games and late-night ramen runs. The things they carried because it was easier than putting them down. Easier than admitting they were scared. Easier than admitting they needed each other more than they dared to want. Finally, Chen stood up, crossed the room, and sat down on the edge of Wei's bed. Close. Not touching, but close enough that Wei could feel the warmth of him. Steady and grounding. Wei stared at his hands, at the small ink stain smudged across his thumb. "I'm not good at this," Wei said quietly. Chen didn't pretend not to know what he meant. He just nodded. "Me neither." Wei let out a shaky breath. "But I'm trying." Chen smiled. Small and real and a little broken. "Yeah. Me too." And for the first time that night, some of the weight lifted. Not all of it. Not enough to make them whole. But enough to breathe a little easier. Enough to stay. Enough to believe. Maybe they didn't have to carry it all alone. Narrator. We all carry things we don't talk about. Ghosts of what we lost. Fears of what we'll never have. But sometimes, if we're lucky, we find someone willing to carry the weight with us. Someone who sees all the broken pieces and chooses to stay anyway.